She's America's sweetheart, the face an entire generation grew up with, a constant presence on our screens who radiates a warmth and familiarity that few stars ever achieve. For decades, Jennifer Aniston has been a symbol of Hollywood glamour and effortless charm, the woman with the world's most famous hair and a smile that can light up any room. Her life, painted by the flashbulbs of the paparazzi, looked like a modern fairy tale. But behind the billion-dollar smile, behind the iconic roles and the red carpet perfection, lies a private reality that is far from a fairy tale. It's a story of deep and persistent pain, a narrative carefully hidden from the public eye. It's a lifetime of devastating losses, a strained relationship with her own mother that haunted her for years, and a secret, painful health battle she endured in silence, while the world endlessly speculated about her body and her choices. This is the untold story of the silent struggles of Jennifer Aniston. It's the story of a woman forced to grieve her greatest heartbreaks under the harshest of spotlights, who fought personal wars no one knew about. Her quiet resilience in the face of it all is the most heartbreaking and inspiring part of her story. At 56, the tragedy of Jennifer Aniston isn't what the world thinks it is. It's about the silent strength it took to survive it all. To understand the steel beneath that sunny exterior, you have to go back to the beginning, to a childhood that was anything but stable or loving. Jennifer was born to actors John Aniston and Nancy Dow, so her life was always entwined with the pressures of Hollywood. But the real cracks in her world appeared early. When she was just 9 years old, her father walked out. The divorce was a seismic event that left a young Jennifer feeling shattered and alone. She's spoken about the profound impact of that moment, recalling the confusion and pain. "I remember sitting there crying, not understanding that he was gone," she has said, noting her mother never explained he was gone for good. For about a year, there was just silence. That absence, and the fractured family it created, would cast a long shadow over her life, shaping her own approach to relationships for decades. She later admitted, "My parents, watching my family's relationship, didn't make me kind of go, 'Oh, I can't wait to do that.'" It was her first of many lessons, in-laws teaching her early on that it was almost easier to just be kind of solo. But her father's departure was only part of the story. The relationship that would prove to be one of the most defining and damaging of her life was with her mother, Nancy. A former model and actress, Nancy was a woman who, according to Jennifer, was fixated on appearances. Jennifer recalled her mother as gorgeous, stunning, and that she, by contrast, wasn't. This created a dynamic of constant criticism that chipped away at Jennifer's self-worth. Nancy's world was one of, "Honey, take better care of yourself," or "Honey, put your face on." The criticism was relentless. It wasn't just about looks, it went deeper. Jennifer described a household that felt destabilized and unsafe, where she watched adults be unkind to each other and was made to feel her own emotions didn't matter. In a particularly painful memory, she recalled raising her voice to her mother for the first time, only to be met with laughter. "She was laughing at me for screaming back," Jennifer said, "and it was like a punch in my stomach." This environment taught her to bury her anger and become passive-aggressive, a trait she'd have to unlearn later in life. The toxicity hit its peak in 1999, right at the height of her Friends fame. Nancy Dow published a tell-all memoir, From Mother and Daughter to Friends, a Memoir. The book, which detailed their private struggles, felt like the ultimate betrayal. For Jennifer, a fiercely private person already dealing with overwhelming global stardom, it was unforgivable. The wound was so deep that she cut off all communication with her mother for years. She didn't even invite Nancy to her wedding to Brad Pitt. It would take more than a decade for them to begin to reconcile, only shortly before Nancy's death in 2016. This childhood, marked by abandonment and criticism, laid the groundwork for her future struggles. It instilled in her a deep-seated feeling of not being enough and a profound difficulty in trusting others. As she once said, "I guess I have my parents to thank. It comes from growing up in a household that was destabilized and felt unsafe. Watching adults being unkind to each other, it made me think, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that." This wasn't just a tough childhood, it was a training ground for a lifetime of guardedness. Long before she was Rachel Green, Jennifer Aniston was just another struggling actress in Hollywood, and her path was paved with rejection. Her father, a veteran soap opera actor, actually discouraged her from going into the business, hoping to spare her the heartbreak. But that only made her more determined. Her struggles weren't just about landing roles, though. For years she was battling an invisible hurdle: dyslexia. All through school she just believed she wasn't smart. "I thought I wasn't smart. I just couldn't retain anything," she confessed to The Hollywood Reporter. That feeling of being academically behind her peers created a deep insecurity that she carried with her for years. The diagnosis didn't come until her early 20s, during a routine eye exam. When the doctor ran some tests, it was revealed how her eyes jumped erratically across the page. Discovering she had dyslexia was a life-altering moment. "I felt like all of my childhood trauma dies. Tragedies, dramas were explained," she said. It was an immense relief, finally giving a name to the invisible struggle that had shaped so much of her life. Armed with this new understanding, she pushed forward, but Hollywood had its own challenges. She was told she was too chubby and needed to lose weight to get work, a cruel echo of the critiques from her own mother. Still, she persevered, waiting tables and taking small roles. Then came Friends. The show's success was meteoric. Overnight, Jennifer and her 5 co-stars became the most famous faces on the planet. But those dizzying heights of fame came with a hidden cost. The public scrutiny was immediate and intense. Suddenly, her every move, every outfit, and especially her hair was global news. The pressure to be America's sweetheart was suffocating. Behind the scenes, fame only amplified her anxiety. She has spoken about suffering from sleepwalking in those early years, a physical symptom of the incredible stress she was under. The constant hum of public attention and the weight of global expectation took a serious toll. The 6 cast members famously banded together, becoming what she would later call a chosen family, to navigate the pressure. Their decision to negotiate salaries as a unified bloc was a legendary act of solidarity in Hollywood. But even that couldn't shield her from the relentless spotlight. Every part of her life was now public property, a theme that would define her story for years to come. The rise to fame wasn't a fairy tale. It was a trial by fire that demanded a resilience she was only just beginning to realize she had. If Jennifer Aniston's childhood laid the foundation for her private pain, her love life became the public stage where her heartbreaks played out for the world. Her relationship with Brad Pitt in particular became the stuff of tabloid legend. They met in 1994, were set up by their agents in 1998, and quickly became Hollywood's golden couple. Their $1 million wedding in 2000 sealed their status as the peak of A-list romance. For 5 years, they were the fairy tale. Publicly, they seemed deeply in love. In 2004, Jennifer even said she was ready to start a family, stating, "It's time." But behind the perfect image, things were crumbling. Then in 2005, the fairy tale shattered. The couple announced their separation with a joint statement, insisting it wasn't the result of tabloid speculation. It read, "We happily remain committed and caring friends with great love and admiration for one another." But the tabloid narrative was already written. Pitt had just finished filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Angelina Jolie, and rumors of an on-set romance were everywhere. Almost overnight, the world was split into Team Aniston and Team Jolie. Jennifer was cast in the most painful role of her life, the wronged, abandoned wife. The media coverage was relentless and brutal, turning her personal grief into a global soap opera. It was such juicy reading for people, she later reflected. The intense scrutiny was a jarring experience for someone already in a vulnerable state. She admitted she took it all very personally. "Boy, did I take it personally," she said. It was nearly impossible to escape. In the immediate aftermath, she channeled her pain into her work, taking a role in The Breakup. She called the experience cathartic, a way to process her emotions on screen. But privately, she was navigating the wreckage. Despite the public humiliation, she handled it with unbelievable grace, famously telling Vanity Fair in 2005, "I will love Brad for the rest of my life. He's a fantastic man. I don't regret any of it." Years later, a second marriage would also end in the public eye. She began dating actor and writer Justin Theroux in 2011, and they married in a private ceremony in 2015. This relationship seemed quieter, more grounded. Yet after 2 years of marriage, they too announced their separation in early 2018. Once again, the media machine spun out of control, speculating about why they split. Their joint statement emphasized their mutual respect. "We are two best friends who have decided to part ways as a couple, but look forward to continuing our cherished friendship." And they have. They remain close friends who FaceTime and text regularly. Theroux himself has called the split gentle and amicable, but the pattern was undeniable. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, both dissected under a global microscope. Jennifer herself later said she doesn't see her marriages as failures but as successful relationships that simply ran their course. Yet, that mature perspective was always overshadowed by a tragic media narrative. The world saw a woman unlucky in love, but the reality was far more complex. It was the story of a woman trying to find partnership while carrying the weight of her past and the crushing burden of public expectation. Of all the stories the tabloids spun about Jennifer Aniston, none was more persistent or painful than the one about motherhood. For decades, her body was a subject of public debate. Every photo was scrutinized for a baby bump, leading to countless false headlines. Each time, it was a cruel fiction. If she ate a meal or was just bloated, magazines would circle her stomach with arrows. This relentless speculation was more than just annoying. It was deeply hurtful. In 2016, she'd had enough and penned a powerful essay for the Huffington Post. "For the record, I am not pregnant. What I am is fed up," she wrote. She challenged the idea that a woman's value is tied to being a wife or mother, stating, "We are complete with or without a mate, with or without a child. We get to decide for ourselves what is beautiful when it comes to our bodies." But the world didn't know the whole story. They didn't know the silent, agonizing battle she was fighting behind closed doors. It wasn't until a bombshell interview with Allure magazine in 2022 that she finally revealed the heartbreaking truth. While the world accused her of choosing her career over kids, she was desperately trying to become a mother. "All the years and years and years of speculation, it was really hard," she confessed. "I was going through IVF, drinking Chinese teas, you name it. I was throwing everything at it." This was all happening in her late 30s and 40s. The brutal irony was that as the media painted her as selfish, she was enduring the physically and emotionally grueling process of IVF. The pain of this secret was immense. She spoke of the hurtful assumptions people made. "I used to take it all very personally. The pregnancy rumors and the whole, 'oh, she chose career over kids' assumption.' It's like, you have no clue what's going with me personally, medically. Why can I have kids?" They don't know anything, and it was really hurtful and just nasty. The narrative wasn't just false. It was the exact opposite of her reality. She chose to keep her struggle private for years, explaining, "I've spent so many years protecting my story about IVF. I feel like there's so little that I get to keep to myself." Sharing her story was, in her words, like coming out of hibernation, a way to finally reclaim her own narrative. Ultimately, her journey to motherhood didn't end the way she'd hoped. She expressed a quiet regret, wishing someone had told her to freeze her eggs when she was younger. "You just don't think it. So here I am today. The ship has sailed," she said. Yet, in her typical way, she found a sense of peace. "I actually feel a little relief now because there is no more, can I? Maybe. 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 I don't have to think about that anymore. This revelation changes everything." It's perhaps the most tragic part of her story. A woman enduring one of life's most personal challenges in complete silence, all while being judged by the world for the very thing she was fighting so hard for. In recent years, Jennifer Aniston has faced grief that is both deeply personal and painfully public. The most acute was the sudden tragic death of her Friends co-star and dear friend Matthew Perry in late 2023. Perry was part of her life for nearly 3 decades, their bond forged in the crucible of unimaginable fame. Perry's struggles with addiction were well documented, especially in his own memoir. Jennifer had been one of his staunchest supporters. He recounted a time she confronted him on the Friends set about his drinking, telling him, "We can smell it," in a kind of weird but loving way. A moment, he said, hit him like a sledgehammer. She was the one who reached out the most, a constant in his darkest times. His death sent an insane wave of emotions through her. In a touching tribute, she shared a private text from him that read, "Making you laugh made my day." A small glimpse into their friendship. She wrote, "He was such a part of our DNA. We were always the 6 of us." For Maddie, he knew he loved to make people laugh. He made all of us laugh, and laugh hard. Recently, she offered a heartbreakingly candid reflection on his passing. She admitted that in some ways it felt like they'd been mourning him for a long time, because his battle with addiction was so hard for him to fight. Finding a sliver of peace in his passing, she said she's glad he's no longer in pain. It's the confession of a friend who watched someone she loved struggle immensely, and is just relieved his suffering is finally over. This devastating loss came on the heels of losing her father, John Aniston, in late 2022. Despite their early estrangement, they had reconciled and grown very close. His death marked the end of an era, another profound loss for a woman who has endured so many. Yet even in the midst of such sorrow, there are signs of new light. At 56, she's entered a new phase, one marked by a conscious effort to find balance. After years of being a self-admitted workaholic, she's trying to slow down and create more space for a life outside her career. Part of that new life may include a new relationship. Recently, she has been linked to a hypnotist named Jim, a man with his own story of overcoming adversity. It seems to be a connection rooted in mutual understanding, a hopeful new chapter. Story of Jennifer Aniston isn't the one the tabloids have been selling for 30 years. It's not a simple tale of a jilted wife or a woman who chose fame over family. The real story, written between the lines of the headlines, is one of quiet, unyielding resilience. It's the story of a woman who built a life, a career, and a deep sense of self, not in spite of her pain, but right through the middle of it. From a childhood marked by abandonment and criticism, she learned to be her own source of stability. From the crushing weight of global fame, she learned to protect a small piece of herself. From the humiliation of public divorce and the agony of a secret fertility battle, she learned to define her own worth, on her own terms. She's poured her energy not just into her work, but into causes she believes in. For years, she's been a dedicated supporter of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, helping raise millions for kids battling cancer. She's also made major donations to support racial justice and disaster relief. In 2024, she even launched the Clydeo Fund to support animal rescue, a cause close to her heart. Today at 56, Jennifer Aniston is a woman who has finally given herself permission to be whole. She speaks openly about therapy and processing the deep wounds of her past. She has an unbreakable support system in her close circle of friends. She's found peace in her own narrative, telling Allure magazine, "I feel the best in who I am. Today, better than I ever did in my 20s or 30s even, or my mid-40s. We needed to stop saying bad shit to ourselves." The tragedy of Jennifer Aniston isn't that she endured heartbreak. It's that she had to endure so much of it alone, in silence, while the world watched and judged. But the triumph is in her survival. It's in the grace she has shown, the forgiveness she has found, and the strength she has embodied. She isn't a tragic figure. She is a resilient icon whose true, heartbreaking, and inspiring story is one of quiet and powerful strength. What do you think of Jennifer Aniston's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of your favorite stars. Thanks for watching.